Well, hello, everybody. I am here today with Tracy Williams with A Loving Way to Parent. And our subject today we wanted to talk about is a homeschool thing that we're all doing now. I see all kinds of people talking about it on social media and how they're dealing with it and the balance and all that. So I would love to introduce Tracy. Tracy, thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Marianne.
So one of the articles that had been brought to my attention was all about what are we going to do during this time with parents? Are we going to create a schedule and then hold our kids to it? And how? How do we help them in something we may not even know ourselves? And what do we do if they don't like that? So what are some of your thoughts on the subject?
Well, I'd like to start with just telling parents that are doing this homeschool stuff to just breathe. I look at it as being like you haven't suddenly become a teacher. You didn't get trained for this. You're kind of a pinch hitter for the teacher. And nobody's expecting you to be excellent at this or to be perfect at this. And you're coming in towards the end of the school year. So the kids have already been working on things and been building up to certain things. And then you're coming in to close that end piece, and they're not expecting you to do that like they would do that. So I just want parents to breathe because you are not expected to do something more than what you're able to do. And just the fact that we have Zoom and things like that where families can do things online, it does not mean that it's easy or that you were prepared for that. So that's the first thing I want to start with is just taking a breath and just kind of relaxing and going, okay, I don't have to be perfect at this. And the other thing too,
amen.
Yes, amen. The other thing is, it is overwhelming, but overwhelm is a choice. There is a choice there because you have to look at the pieces that cause the overwhelm. And if you can get rid of the things that cause the overwhelm, then you don't have to be overwhelmed. And part of it is just the breathing. Another part of it is going to be self-care. So if you are taking care of yourself, you have more energy, you have more patience. That will be something that will help you tremendously. And also having your kids take care of themselves, teaching them some of the self-care things. Do you want me to just dive in with some practical pieces?
Absolutely. I think everybody would love to hear that.
Okay. So if you look at the differences between a morning bird and a night owl. You wouldn't necessarily get your child up at the same time that they got up for school before if getting up in the morning was already a problem. Right now, you have a little bit of a reprieve. You can do whatever you want with your school day, and nobody's going to care. So if they prefer working later in the morning, if they prefer working in their pajamas, they don't actually have to get dressed. I mean, that's from my perspective. Some people might want them to get dressed, but it's okay if they have a little wiggle room on some of those little things, because there are a lot of hills that you are climbing on right now and a lot of hills that you might be coming up against with your kids. And so you want to pick your battles wisely. And if you want to get school done, give them the pajamas, give them the later wake up, do what you need to do to kind of meet them where they are and ask them to meet you where you are. And I think that would be one of the biggest things, because a lot of people are trying to stay in the same schedule and get the kids up early, and the kids are upset because they know nobody cares what time they start. And so then it becomes a battle between mom or dad and them. And they're going to fight for it because they don't feel like getting up early. And you might, I mean, it's not going to be the rest of their lives that you don't want them getting up early, or they don't want to get up early, but it's giving them that little bit of leeway because they're going through their own stuff right now. The community doesn't know what's going to happen each day. You know, we're finding out new things all the time. And so just giving them a little bit of leeway, having some flexibility is going to be a big, big plus. Also prioritizing. So even though school is happening at your home, you want to remember that your home has not become a school. There's a big difference with that. So you want to set aside some time for school, but home still needs to be the nurturing place, the eating place, the fun place, the family place. The gift in all of this is that you have more time for family and you have more time for fun. If we're not working, which does bring its own downsides, but we can't do anything about the downside. So we just want to really maximize the upside. And so if nobody's working and nobody's going away for school and you guys are home, you have so many opportunities to do things for fun. And even with your school assignments, if they're working on science and they're not interested in what maybe is presented to them for science that day or for math or for whatever, count money for math or do something online that they are interested in that's science related. If they have to write a paper and they don't want to write about the prompt that they're given, have them write about something else. What would you like to write? Maybe they want to write a letter to grandma or do something like that. You want to do what you can to get in the skill, but it doesn't have to be the thing that they're not interested in. And I only say that because at home, you get to be the boss and you get to kind of move things around a little bit, which is going to create a better relationship and more peace at home. And then you just send a message to the teacher. This is what they got done. They did the task, but they did it with a different prompt. Or they did some math, but they did this part instead of that part. I mean, you can even, some of the other ideas I have are, you could do 10 math problems for 10 M&Ms. You know, it's just, you just make it fun. And I'm trying to think, even jumping jacks, if they have to do a little bit of English, a little bit of math, a little bit of PE, do 10 math problems or 10 minutes of something, 10 jumping jacks, 10 things around the house or the room that you're in, or when the sun is out again, they can do 10 laps around the house. Or you're just looking for creative ways to get them active and to keep their mind moving, but it doesn't have to be the structure that you're being presented with. The schools need to give structure because we wouldn't know what to do if we didn't have something to start with.
Right.
But the teachers know that it's not going to go perfectly and some kids are going to resist. So me as a parenting coach, I'm saying that your relationship with your kids, especially since it's so close to the end of the school year anyway, your relationship with your kids is more valuable. How they feel mentally and emotionally is going to be way more important at the end of this whole process, because the schools will figure out where everybody's at when they go back, and the whole world is going through this. So it's not like your child is going to be behind and nobody else is going to be behind. So it may not even end up being behind. It may just be that everybody is doing a different track.
Right.
We don't know.
So I've been encouraging a little more independence with my daughter, who is in 6th grade. There is so much that she learns that I don't know a whole lot about, as you were talking about. And I really wanted her to take this opportunity to reach out to the teacher. If she has a question, of course, if I can answer a question for her, I'm more than happy to do that. But there are so much that I'm so unaware of in her daily routine at school. And I really wanted to make sure that school was school and home was home too. And I also am working as well. So what are your thoughts on the independent part of this and also bringing those studies here at home?
I think the independence, if you have a student that can take that initiative and they like doing that, I think that's great. And then you can just ask the teacher if the pieces that are getting turned in, if there's anything that's missing or something that the child isn't quite understanding, and if there's something that you can do at home so that you can supplement it. That's actually ideal. If the kids can do the work, then there's communication with the teacher to find out if there's anything else that would enhance it. So some kids will love doing this and being able to step into that. Some are going to be a little bit hesitant. They're not going to want to connect with their teachers. They're not going to even want to do this on their own. It's going to be like moving mud with a fork. So you have to really just figure out where your particular child is. And you may have 3 kids with 3 different ways that they want to do it, and 3 different teachers and 3 different levels of work to do. So you really need to, that's why I say self-care is important, because you need to be able to meet each child where they are. You might have an early bird and a late and more of a night owl person. So that's why you have to breathe, do the self-care, and just realize it's like hunkering down. You're in a position right now where this is your job, your family, your kids, your home, that is your job. School is a piece of that job. Now, the other thing to do as well is they went to school for 6 and 7 hours a day, and then they came home and did homework.
Right.
You will definitely not need near that amount of time. When I did homeschool with my kids, it takes like a couple of hours, 3 hours, because it's real focused time, and
Right.
it's one student. You just get the prompt, you do the thing, and you're done. It's amazing how much more quickly you can get through assignments.
Mm-hmm.
So don't be thinking in your head that you are supposed to be doing school all day, because it doesn't need to be that. It definitely is only like 2 or 3 hours maximum, I would think.
Right.
And I think a lot of teachers, if you do part of the work, maybe the odds or the evens, because there is a lot going on at home, it is harder to focus. And if parents are frustrated and afraid about finances, which a lot of people don't know where their finances are going, the kids are going to feel that. So it's not like you can just set them down and say, hey, focus on school, get your stuff done.
Right.
Why aren't you focusing? Why aren't you doing what you're supposed to do? Why aren't you listening? We're mad at them, but if your mind is full of things and you're confused or you're unsure, isn't it hard for you to also focus? Isn't it hard for you to sit down and think something through?
Yeah.
So what you do in a case like that is you want to just sit down with your kids. I mean, touch is going to be really important. Just give them a hug, pat on the shoulder, and say, hey, can I help you work through this? Kind of thinking if it's a speed bump, if they're working on something and they hit a speed bump, how do you sit down with them and say, hey, let's work together to get over the speed bump? Let's, how can I, with one of my kids years and years ago, they're all grown up now. What I did for him, because he was really super good at history and not so good at English. And he was really slowed down by having to write everything out for history. So all I did with him for that class, because it was about what he knew, that class wasn't about writing, I was his scribe. I just said, you tell me the answers to those questions and I'm going to type them up. And then I gave him the answers all typed up, and then he made the paper. He did whatever he needed to do with it. But you can help your kids get information onto paper. You can even, like some assignments, I just say right now I'm being creative in my thinking, record something that your kids say, okay, Mrs. So-and-so, the answer to this is this. And maybe they don't want to do it handwritten, but they can tell the answer all the way through. Send that in to the teacher. I mean, get creative. What are your kids willing to do?
Right.
Then work with that.
Yeah. That's awesome, especially just because from one kid to the next, they're all so different. So you could have one that's a very visual learner and the other one that likes to write and read. It's everyone's different. And that's the benefit of a classroom. I remember in high school for a minute, our school tried to change the curriculum to more of a independent study while at school and to see everybody how they were moving, and it was like on their own pace. And it was incredible the change that happened to the students because they were so used to classroom learning and how you move forward in that and not moving at your own pace, that we ended up going back to the original programming after it didn't work out so well. And that's not to say anything other than this is just a complete change of pace for every single student and every parent who's trying to juggle. And I feel for the teachers out there who also have students at home that are distance learning. So they're teaching students while they're trying to also teach their own children. So it's just definitely different times that we're in.
That is so true. And even thinking in terms of, it doesn't have to be a Monday through Friday, like really thinking out of the box. If you want to be able to say, well, we get 3-day weekends or we get 4-day weekends, what do we need to get done in the 2 days or the 3 days that we call school, if they want to put more time in a smaller amount of time instead of breaking it up. Now, some kids want to break it up and they'll want to break it up throughout the day, but there's no right or wrong way to do it. And one other thing that I wanted to definitely mention is if you're getting frustrated, it's probably because you're multitasking. So when your kids are working on school and you want to be available for that, because the little ones are going to need it, and maybe the older ones are a bit more self-guided, but you do want to be available. So if you're trying to work at home and your kids are doing schoolwork and they interrupt you, and that's going to mess up what you're doing for work, you want to give them tasks that they are not going to need your help on, or that maybe an older sibling can help them with if you have to do something for work.
Right.
If you're not working at home, and you just have things that you like to do, try and find something that keeps you close, like do sweeping or laundry or some meal prep or something while they're working on homework, so that it can be a back and forth conversation. They're not coming and finding you every time, but you're also not sitting on top of them while they do their work. You're kind of doing your thing, they're doing their thing. And when they say, Mom, I don't understand this question, it doesn't totally take you off task. You're already there because that's what you're doing. You're helping with school. And
Right.
you just walk over to the side and you look at it and you explain and then you move on. So when you're feeling frustrated and upset, it is probably because you're multitasking and the interruptions are blocking your focus, and that will make us frustrated. And so you don't want to take that out on your kids, because who else are they going to ask?
Yeah.
They're going to ask you because you're now taking on that role. Or they can put something in on the computer with the teacher, but they probably, if they're little, they're going to need that from you as well. So keeping that in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And you touched on it earlier about, how they're not going to want to do things. And part of what I had read in an article prior to this meeting was just about behavioral issues and how, like you mentioned, this is so new to them. And that they really just need to know that everything's going to be okay, and different outlets for them to see their friends. I also know that my daughter's saying that she's got a headache from being on the laptop too long. So I'm trying to limit the amount of time that she is on devices at all and break it up with, go play with the dogs a little bit and do some physical activities and read a book for, 20 minutes a day, and just doing different things to kind of make a new schedule instead of trying to mirror the schedule that we can't anymore. And this rain does not help, let's just say.
I know.
Ugh,
I know. Yeah, it keeps everybody cooped up inside.
yeah, of
Um,
all things.
yeah. And along those lines is changing it up until you get it right, until you get something that works. If you know it's not working, I wouldn't even try to keep doing it every single day. I would just say, okay, this isn't working. And one thing to really do that will really strengthen your relationship with your kids is to ask for their feedback. Because a lot of times we're trying to figure out, what's the schedule going to be like? How are we going to do this? How are we going to do that? And we don't ask them. We tell them what the schedule is.
Okay.
But if you can sit down with your kids and say, okay, these are the subjects that we need to get through. They know which ones are easy, which ones are hard, which ones they like, which ones they don't like. You can ask them, which ones do you rather do first? Which ones do you need more help with? Let them help you figure out the schedule. And then if it doesn't work, or people are feeling frustrated, or your kids are going on strike, all that is nobody needs to get in trouble. All that is an indicator that something isn't working. And so then it's a conversation. And conversations, if we can focus this time on having more communication with our kids, it will be such a gift to families. So just being able to say, what do you think about this isn't probably working for you? What should we try and change? What do you want to do differently? How can I be more supportive? I mean, there's so many different ways to do that depending on what's going on with the child. It might be a school piece. It might be a home piece. It might be that they're worried about a friend or they miss a friend. A lot of kids are really missing their friends, just like the adults are missing their friends.
Right.
And it is interesting that families had so much issue over kids being able to connect so much with their friends on devices.
Right.
And now everybody has to rely on devices for that connection.
Yeah.
So you have to look at perspective and how that really changed our perspective on how you actually can connect with your friends on devices. So that's just a little additional.
Speaking of connecting on devices, we just recently started connecting with family members all over on Zoom, which normally when you think of Zoom, you think of work, you think of webinars and learning and school now, but you don't think about how to connect. I know some people are using it for happy hours and that's fun, but I got, the grandparents on and the siblings on, and we were all able to look at each other and talk to each other. And it definitely makes you feel as together as possible. If you can get even more creative to, have fun on your Zoom calls with each other, that's even better. And I was also encouraging my daughter to reach out to a friend. They were taking a little class together, so they have activities that they can do with their camera, and then share with each other some of the progress they're making. So it feels like you're doing something with a friend, even though you're really not. It's just one more thing we can use doesn't have to be a work tool.
Exactly. That is such a great point. And even another thing I was thinking of as you were mentioning that, because there are so many wonderful things that we can do. We hadn't thought about connecting with family more often when they're out of town or friends. And that made me think of the fact that there are things that we're doing right now that we didn't do before. And those things that you value or that your kids value, find out what they are, because you can keep doing them going forward.
Yeah.
My daughter came to me, she'll be 19 next week. And so she's my youngest, so I'm done with school. She comes up to me and she says to me last week, Mom, I know there's a lot of stuff going on with the COVID-19 thing that's not good. She says, but there are some pieces of it that I really love. And I want to know, is there a way for us to keep that in our schedule when we go back to what will be sort of normal? Right. And I love that. So even having that conversation with your kids and saying, what about school at home do you like? Because you might be able to blend some of that into homework later. And what about being home with the whole family do you like? Do you like family dinners? Are you liking more time with the dog or taking walks? Write those things down because you'll forget later. Yeah. Everybody writing those things down, and then look at how you can implement those things so that we don't get into that busyness and that crazy. Everybody felt like they didn't have enough time for the things that were important. Yeah. And now we have time for those things. So this is the time, and especially because the whole world is reevaluating everything out of necessity, this is the time that we can, when we put things back together, we can insert these into our schedule. Right. And this is the time to decide how many dinners a week do you want to have, which will impact, are we doing sports or not doing sports? Mm-hmm. This is the time to make those decisions. And it's not a forever decision. It could be for one season. Let's try it for this season, or for these few months, or for this couple of weeks. But you're playing with it. Whatever you're doing now to work your kids through homeschool, mm-hmm. that's what you want to do afterwards to work them back into school and you going to work and all of those other elements. It's all really a conversation. It's building a relationship. It's finding out what everybody needs and how do we create a win-win. That's really what we're doing.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. And also, to your point, I think once we do get back to the new normal, kids will actually be happy to go to school. I can't wait to hear teachers talking about how they're going to pay attention more and to be thankful to be in the classroom just to have that environment. But for now, creating the new environment and making it a peaceful and happy place is just awesome. I really appreciate all of your tips that you have to offer. You're always creating so much more information to put out on social media. I see your videos, and I just think that what you're doing for our community is so wonderful. Thank you so much, Tracy.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, Marianne. This was a pleasure.
Mm-hmm. All right, you guys, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to drop them below, and Tracy can answer you, or I can as well. Or please share this video with your sphere as well. You never know if there's a mom or a dad out there struggling with the same exact subject. So we would love to hear what they're thinking and doing, and if there's anything that we can do to support each other in this time. So thanks so much, and make it a great day.